sensible solution can be arrived at. You can't change borders unless there's mutual consent, and we know that Serbia will not grant that consent. There are other alternatives that can be explored, short of independence. We have the example of Cyprus. We have many other examples of where a country that guarantees human rights, as Serbia has done to the Albanian population, can exist without being independent. An independent Kosovo means trouble in the Balkans and more trouble in an already troubled world. Thank you.
My name is Brian Adeba from Embassy Newspaper. All of you three have said that it's not a good idea to grant Kosovo independence. And the Archbishop here raised concerns about the treatment of the Serb population in Kosovo. But when we look at the history of Kosovo, the Serbs certainly have a very bad record too in that country. And as we look at current developments, recent developments, the majority of the people in Kosovo are Albanians who want independence. Is this not a good thing for them?
Mi smo svi protiv nezavisnosti Kosova. Međutim, Albanci sada imaju većinu na Kosovu. Zar to ne bi bila dobra ideja da postanu nezavisni?
Znate, Albanci su u Srbiji manjina i nigde u svetu na osnovu većine jednog naroda u jednoj pokrajini države ne može da odvoji tu pokrajinu od države, pa ne može ni na Kosovu.
In Serbia, Albanians are in the minority situation. The Serbs are in the majority. And nowhere else in the world, in any other state or country, one minority in one part of the country cannot separate that part from the mother country.
Upravo bi to bio taj presedan koji bi zapalio mnoge probleme u širom sveta, mnoge separatističke težnje.
Actually, that solution, independence of Kosovo, would inflame many other spots in the world and would encourage all the other small separatist groups all over the world.
Nigde nije presudan broj jednog naroda u jednom kraju, nego istorija koja je prethodila tome.
It's not only important what it is happening at the moment, but the history of the happenings. How did we come to this situation?
Ovdje nije mesto da o svemu tome podrobno govorimo, ali se mora uzeti činjenice u obzir.
This is not really the place or the time or the lack of time that we can discuss this wider, but all those facts must be taken into consideration.
Thank you. That's your question, I think, frames it nicely. I mean, one thing to point out is nobody in the Balkans comes to any of these disputes with clean hands. The difference is nobody in Serbia pretends to, whereas the Albanian side pretends that they're simply victims and ignore the kind of violence they've been visiting upon the Serbian community to maintain the huge numbers and increase the huge numbers they have in Kosovo while driving out the indigenous Christian Serbian population. It's interesting. Ambassador Bissett pointed out the claim that there was a genocide of the Albanians going on in Kosovo in 1998 and 1999 that justified the intervention. Genocide in Kosovo are like the WMDs in Iraq. They're not there. It didn't happen. What you had was a vicious terrorist organization provoking a response from a government and then complaints that that response was too heavy-handed. In that sense, the Kosovo crisis was like any number of guerrilla disputes anywhere in the world, where you have a separatist group, an armed separatist group, sometimes a terrorist group, and then a government that is responding against them. What is completely different now, though, is here we are 7 years into it, and the leadership of the same terrorist organization is demanding to be a government of a new state when it has shown absolutely no toleration, and the international community has shown no inclination to enforce toleration for the people in that province who do not meet the ethnic or religious description of the people who want to claim power. And I think that's the decisions that is before the international community right now. No, it's not.
The news stories coming from there and the actions of the United Nations and the international community, it all points to the fact that Kosovo is going to be independent. Now, would the situation be different if there are guarantees for the Serb minority in Kosovo?
Well, again, the Serbs are not a minority in Kosovo. There's an Albanian minority in Serbia, which is concentrated in Kosovo. By the way, there are Albanians and Muslims all over Serbia whose rights are respected, unlike the rights of Serbs in Kosovo. The fact of the matter is this decision, as much as some governments, especially mine, may have decided that that's what they want, it is part of their propaganda line to insist that it's decided, it's already inevitable, when in fact it is not. The Serbian government absolutely will not agree to the detachment of Kosovo, and the Russian government, and probably also the Chinese government, have indicated that they will not agree to a new Security Council resolution that Serbia has not agreed to. Even the proponents of Kosovo independence in Washington and elsewhere concede that if they can't get a new resolution through the Security Council, they cannot get independence for Kosovo. So this by no means is over.
Why do you think that the United States and other countries are pushing for independence for Kosovo?
I think there's several reasons. One is the kind of great power arrogance that people in Canada and other countries have criticized the United States for in other areas of the world, as Ambassador Bissett noted. I think part of it is that there are some officials who themselves have been making policy in this area for several years now, in other words, who have an individual track record to defend and are not about to change their mind or admit that they were wrong about something. I think there's also a misguided element in the American war on terror where we would like to say, well, never mind what our policy is in the Middle East and never mind what our policy is in Iraq. We can show our friends in Riyadh or Islamabad or Cairo our bona fides toward the Islamic world by being their friend someplace here where it doesn't hurt anybody we particularly care about. If the facts don't happen to fit that particular scenario, too bad. We hope we can buy their goodwill anyway. I think that's part of it.
Question to Ambassador Bissett. What concrete steps or actions should Canada take to solve this problem?
Well,
Microphone. Sorry.
Canada is not a member of the contact group that's been established to supervise the end result, whether it's independence or some form of autonomy. But Canada did take part in the bombing. It was a member of NATO. It did 10% of the airstrikes. It's a member of the United Nations, and it bears some responsibility to ensure that NATO members particularly live up to the commitments that they made during and after the bombing. Remember that United Nations Resolution 1244, which was a judicious resolution and a sensible one, guaranteed the civil rights and the human rights of all of the people of Kosovo. It guaranteed that all of those that had been chased out of Kosovo could return with peace and security. It guaranteed and demanded that the KLA, the terrorist organization, would be disarmed. It guaranteed as well that Serb military forces could re-enter Kosovo to guard the holy places and patrol the borders. It made all of these guarantees, and it was a good resolution. It also said that before any question of further sovereignty or autonomy would be granted to Kosovo, certain standards would have to be met. Now, the UN have had people inspect Kosovo intermittently since then, and all the reports have agreed that the Albanians there have not lived up to any of these standards. NATO did not disarm the KLA, but allowed it to become the security force in Kosovo. NATO would not allow Serbian forces back to guard the churches and the monasteries, and didn't guard them themselves. 150 of them were destroyed. So I don't think you can expect Canada to do other than to add its voice in the councils of the United Nations and NATO and say, wait a minute, we are not going to violate territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Serbia.